Hey guys, what's up? It's Zero to 9, and today I want to quickly talk about an important topic, which is speaker placement. Recently, a friend of mine asked me if I can help him with his studio setup, and he sent me a picture, and I saw that he placed his two-way speaker horizontally, and I told him not to do that, and I see recently a lot of other producers doing that as well. So I want to quickly address this topic today and why this is probably not a good idea. So first of all, let's start a little bit about speaker design. Most of you guys probably have a two-way speaker design in their studios. Two-way speaker design just means you have two drivers, one tweeter for the high frequencies, and then you have a low-mid driver for the low and mid frequencies. And they are usually placed like this. So you have on top the tweeter and then the low-mid driver below. That's the mainstream two-way speaker design. Then we have also two-way speakers which are placed aligned differently, but we'll talk in a minute about that. And the other common speaker design which we'll have in some bigger studios probably is the three-way speaker design. So we have three drivers here. We have the tweeter, we have the mid driver, and the low and low mid driver. And that's a little bit bigger and more expensive speakers, which have a design like this. And this design, for example, is you can also see that the alignment of these drivers is different. So we don't have them one each below each other. So they are here. We have two, and here we have the big for the low frequency driver. So in this video, we will not talk about a three-way design. We will talk specifically about a two-way speaker design, which is where the drivers are placed like this. So we have the tweeter and the low-mid driver below. And the people which are placing their speakers horizontally are often using Yamaha speakers. I see a lot of pictures like this where people put here their speakers horizontally. And the reason probably why is that, especially with Yamaha speakers, is because probably you have heard about the very famous Yamaha NS10 speakers. They are very old, but they were used in a lot of professional studios as a reference monitor because they have a pretty true sound in the mid-range, where you can hear how the song sounds on like very cheap speakers. And actually the NS10s didn't have a very good sound, but it sounded like it would sound on consumer speakers, and that's why a lot of people use this as a reference to check if the sound was good on consumer speakers. And the design of the NS10s is completely different, because you can see here that the tweeter is not above the low-mid driver. Instead, it's next to each other. And so by default, the design of the NS10 speakers was different. They were placed horizontally, the drivers next to each other, and that's not the design with the new Yamaha speakers, where you have the tweeter above the low mid driver. And that's probably because a lot of people do it because they think, that this is how the pros do it, so I will do the same and place my monitor horizontally. But there is a reason why that is not a good idea, and now we will get into the technical details. And let's quickly jump back to the Neumann page, because the cool thing about Neumann is that they will give you all the technical specifications and also the diagrams, so you can really see what the speaker is doing. And so let's scroll down, and there are two diagrams which are useful for us today. And that's the horizontal directivity plot and the vertical directivity plot. And what they basically say is how the horizontal dispersion and the vertical dispersion looks like. So that means how wide or narrow is the sweet spot of the speaker where the sound is pretty much the same. And here on the horizontal directivity plot, you can see that this orange here area is kind of the sweet spot of the speaker, where you have very low differences in volume. And you can see here, maybe I can zoom in a little bit, that on the horizontal axis for the mid-high frequencies, we basically have an angle here. You can see on the y-axis we have the degrees in the angle, and on the x-axis we have the frequencies. So you can see here that if you stay inside the range of like plus minus 35 dB, 35 degree, you are pretty much in the sweet spot on the horizontal axis. And then on the vertical axis, you see that the diagram looks a little bit different, especially here in the mid-range. And this is a very critical area, because you can see it's like from 1.5K to like 8K. And that's where the human ear is very sensitive. So there are a lot of useful information is here. And in this area, you have a very narrow sweet spot. So it's probably like only 10 or 15 degrees. And that's the very important point. So that just means that on the horizontal axis, you have a very wide sweet spot where you have pretty much the same sound. But on the vertical axis, you have a pretty narrow sweet spot. So, and the reason for that is because if you think about it, it's very common that you probably will move your head to the left or the right, but it's not very common to move your head up and down all the time. And the reason for that is simply because if you think about it, if you sit in your chair, you're not going to move your head up and down. Instead, you will probably move your head to the left, a little bit to the right. And so it's more important to have a big and wide sweet spot on the horizontal axis, but on the vertical axis, it's not really necessary, because the position of your head is pretty much the same all the time. And that's the reason behind that. And this is a very important point. So please keep that in mind. And now we will talk about what will happen if you turn your speakers by 90 degrees and place them vertically. So what happens is you have this very wide sweet spot on the horizontal axis, and now you turn the speakers by 90 degrees. So what will happen is that you will get turned by 90 degrees, and suddenly the wide sweet spot you had on the horizontal axis becomes the sweet spot on the vertical axis. And the narrow sweet spot you had on the vertical axis, turned by 90 degrees, will get the sweet spot on the horizontal axis. So suddenly you have a pretty narrow sweet spot on the vertical, on the horizontal axis. So that means if you move your head to the left or if you move your head to the right, you will get noticeable volume drops. Because the sweet spot is pretty narrow now. And now you have a very wide sweet spot on the vertical axis, which is not really needed because there's really no reason for that, because your head is pretty much the same. And that's the reason why I would definitely not recommend to place two-way speakers with a design like this horizontally, sorry. This is in most cases not a good idea. So instead of placing your monitors like this, place them as they meant to be placed, which is like this. Just put them vertically like they are meant to be placed. And that's the reason behind it, because the vertical and the horizontal dispersion of the speaker is not the same on the vertical axis, you have a pretty narrow sweet spot, and on the horizontal axis, you have a pretty wide sweet spot. And that's important because as a professional producer, you probably want to get the best sound out of your speakers to help you with making great songs. And that's why I would recommend it. I would recommend you to place them like they will give you the best sound and not just to look cool or something, because that will probably not going to help. And let's quickly talk about a more expensive speaker, which is from ATC. You probably know the brands ATC and PMC. They are pretty professional speakers for professional studio environments. And here we have the SCM20 by ATC, and here you can see that the dispersion on the horizontal axis is plus minus 80 degrees, which is a very wide sweet spot, but on the vertical axis we have only plus minus 10 degrees, so it's a very narrow sweet spot on the vertical axis. And if you now place these speakers, the ATC speakers like this, you will get a very narrow. You have plus minus 10 degrees only on the horizontal axis, and that means, for example, if you are doing a collab and you're two people in the studio and you're probably not sitting right in the center of your speakers, you will lose a lot of sound quality, and that's the reason behind it and why I would not recommend it to do it. Yeah, so I think it was clear what I was trying to say. You can download these diagrams here from Neumann, for example, on their page. So if someone asks, you can show them these diagrams to them and tell them why it's probably not a good idea. So I think everything has been said. If you liked that video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and see you in the next videos. Yeah, have a great day. Ciao, bye-bye.